I always get excited when, when you meet like-minded people that likes, for example, books. We've just been talking about books before we went on here and the power of them. And we're going through some of my books in the back and what the key learnings was. And that was what happened when we had our first conversation. And then also, I really love when operators hit challenges and pain points, and then they try to go and solve them. I think like tech is a great example of how you can actually, as an operator, if you really felt or founder really felt the pain, then you can go and create a much better solution than anyone else because you know who you're serving and what pain you're solving. So, with that said, welcome to the show, Jennifer. I'm very excited to share your story as an entrepreneur today, but also like how you were part of solving the staffing challenges in hospitality.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Can you, first of all, for the listeners, like give a bit of context of your journey into hospitality because that was not where you started, and then how you went from running a restaurant to build a tech solution.
Yes, I am based in the States, and outside of one job as a server in the summer during college, I have zero hospitality experience. So it was very much confusing to my family and friends when my husband's job took us to the South and I wanted to open up a healthy, fast casual restaurant with zero experience. I learned a lot in that endeavor. This was right before the pandemic. Had I known what was coming, I wonder if I would have rethought that plan. But ultimately, flash forward, I put together a business plan. I got together funding. We bootstrapped from the beginning. I teamed up with wonderful people in a place that wasn't home, in an industry I knew nothing about, and bringing a type of food that was fairly foreign to this region, salads and vegetarian burgers and vegan offerings. And all of this, against all odds, I should say, because of the people and because the community, we were able to launch this brick and mortar called Blue Root. And I opened the doors of our flagship restaurant 8 weeks after I had a baby. And I look back on that moment and think, how did we do that? And I go back to the people that I was so lucky to surround myself with. But if anybody out there is an operator, you know this is the hardest industry. And the only thing harder on us in 2020 was the fact that we were hit with really the most difficult challenge any of us had seen in a long time. And I, like many others, as an independent owner, wanted to make sure we could keep the lights on, keep paying our team, keep supporting our community. And against all odds, we survived. But it was really the staffing challenge that almost put the nail in the coffin for us. And
Mm.
unfortunately, ended the track record of so many amazing businesses in our town and around the country. And it was at that moment in 2021, after we had survived a few moments of the pandemic, the supply chain issues, and so many other challenges, that I teamed up with other people in the industry to try to stem the bleeding, to try to figure out a way to keep great people in the industry by providing flexibility in the work. And by doing that, we were trying to fill shifts in businesses that were understaffed around town. And that was the bridge from Blue Root to Crew.
and it's very interesting because of course I dig a bit digging, but again you have to change industry a number of times besides you also set up a family and so on because that's also a transition in itself. I definitely, the most people I and founder world is very hard with family. Can you talk a bit about, like, before we go into the problem you're solving with the staffing crisis and Croux' role in that, exactly about how do you make that happen? Because I'm very fascinated about, from a very, very corporate job to running a restaurant and even moving location, which I didn't know. It was very interesting. You move across the country and to then launch a tech businesses because it's, it's really different worlds. Like, and I just been in food and hospitality and restaurant all my life, and I thought that was making shift from supplier to operator and the other way around again.
They are very different. So between that summer as a server in New York City and opening up a restaurant, I spent 10 years in the financial services industry. I worked on Wall Street in New York City. And that could not in many ways be more different than running a restaurant. But I will say that there are threads of familiarity in any highly intense job where There are a lot of moving parts and a lot of moving pieces, and you're at the mercy of a lot of uncontrollable things. And so, as a young person in my 20s, I was not in charge of deals. I was not running point on a lot of transactions. I was there at the mercy of whatever the clients needed, my boss needed. And a lot of those 10 years were cutting my teeth and figuring out how to solve problems, right? Working with great people, working with difficult personalities, working with people all over the state, the country, the world, figuring out a way to get a problem solved for someone, right? And so I think it goes back, as different as those industries are, it taught me a lot about how to solve problems and how to think creatively and how to work with people who have perhaps a different goal in mind, but you need to be able to come together and get something over the finish line. Those tactics, those practices, and frankly, just a lot of the exposure to working through difficult situations, right? That's what teed me up to be able to run a restaurant. And I will look back at that job as a server that summer in New York City and say, that was probably one of the hardest jobs I ever had. I was so ill equipped. I was so bad at what I was doing. And I had to learn quickly how to communicate with a bunch of different people, how to learn skills, how to triage problems when the guest is staring at you to solve something that has gone awry. And it was the beginning of learning how to solve problems in a high stress environment. The next 10 years looked a lot like that. And then the restaurant came, and I felt like I had had some of those reps under my belt to really understand how to work in difficult situations, how to have the fortitude to keep going, how to understand when to ask for help. But I also think, as I've learned over the last couple of years, after finance, I worked in technology for a bit before the restaurant, and now I'm back in tech. Different, I always thought, was a detractor from my resume. I thought I was going to be too much of a wild card for some. And I found that at many phases of my career. I was an English major that went to work on Wall Street. I had zero experience. I moved into technology with zero experience in technology. I opened up a restaurant with, outside that summer, zero experience. But a lot of it had to do with transferable skill sets. And so over the years, I've learned that these different backgrounds that I bring aren't detractors, but they're really, they're a differentiator for me. They give me a leg up because they give me a vantage point and a perspective that's new and different. It's a fresh way of looking at building a restaurant. I had experience understanding the numbers. I felt very comfortable putting together a business plan and managing a P&L. And I think as I talk to more restaurateurs, that's an area of opportunity, of growth for them. That's not where they lean into the strength. They have the culinary experience, which is not what I had. And so more and more, I try to lean into the different background and to leverage the learnings in those other places. We have tried to manage the teams in not even more corporate ways, but there are threads of what I've learned in those other industries that have allowed me to give more and give differently to my team members. That is not typical in hospitality, whether that's parental leave, paid time off, flexible schedules. And we've really tried to reimagine what great looks like. And it doesn't have to be what is traditionally done in that industry. And I keep finding ways to bring the different into the new experience. And I think that point of view has proven useful.
And there was a couple of things you said, Jennifer, that made me reflect. If we're just gonna stay with that, one of them was that you said that these transferable skills. What would you say is the top three skills you take with you? Like, because um, I can see that thing about thinking differently coming from as an outsider is definitely an advantage sometimes, especially in an industry where systemic issues around. And you said that the P&L was a great example of. I was very lucky. My mom and dad trained me in P&L. I worked for McDonald's, trained me in P&L, but lots of operators don't understand how P&L, and it is actually a game. You need to learn to play with your P&L.
Yes. Top three.
Yeah.
I would say number one is ability to collaborate with people, right? You need to be able to work together. If I've learned anything, this is not a solo venture. You cannot work alone in this industry. You cannot work alone in any industry. Even if you're a solo founder, You need to surround yourself with people. And I think step one in that is recognizing one's own blind spots, right?
Yeah.
It's being removing the ego. We were talking about Ryan Holiday before, right? Recognizing where you have opportunities for growth and surrounding yourself by people that are going to be smarter than you in some capacity and being very comfortable with that. So it's this notion of team, working together, collaboration, self-awareness. I think that's number one. Number two, I would say, is asking the right questions. I often find that I am in a room, whether it's a meeting or a discussion, and it could be with a team, it could be with the city, it could be some other group, and the conversation is not focused on the right thing. And next thing I know, people are solving a problem that really doesn't move the needle. And so figuring out a way to get to the core of what is the most important thing we need to do right now. I ask my team a lot, we have one big goal this year. There are a lot of things that need to happen, but there's one big goal. And I ask them almost every day, what needs to be true for that to happen? Anything else, take it off your list. And so really figuring out a way to find the priorities, be clear about them, and ask the right questions. I think that is the starting point for leading teams down the roads on priorities that will move the needle, right? Otherwise, it's just a bunch of stuff and a bunch of cycles and a bunch of noise. And we are here to move the needle. We are here to change the game. We are here to disrupt an industry. And number three, I think whether you use the word fortitude or grit or just perseverance, I have found that sometimes, most of the time, I am not the most seasoned and I am not the smartest in the room. I do not have the 20 years of culinary experience. I do not have 30 years in the industry. I will oftentimes be the last one standing because I know I have the ability to keep going and I have such conviction in what we're doing. And sometimes that just takes a lot of awareness on what the goal is. But I just refuse to give up if I know that something is worth pushing for or pursuing. And there are a lot of things that are taking away our attention these days, and instant gratification is a real thing, particularly as we look down at younger generations. I've tried to stay focused, and I have tried to outlive, the people around me, and sometimes surviving, particularly in these really tough moments like a pandemic or supply chain issues or staffing crises. You've just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And it is not glamorous to do the work. People believe that there is some sort of shortcut to getting there. There is no quick cash. There is no windfall that's coming. Sometimes it's just simply doing the work. And I think that's lost these days. And so I think with those three things, figuring out how to work together, figuring out what to focus on and asking the right questions, and just doing the work around that, I think it's not everything, but it's the core to what empowers us to run these businesses, to support the teams, and to support the communities. And I hope it is the reason that we continue to be resilient, even when times get really tough.
Have you found that as you've gone into new industries, it's been challenging for you to get a voice at the table, because it seemed like when you end on the grit thing, it's almost like you have to fight for that position, and the only way to fight is not say I should be given the word. It's actually showing that you can keep on going those 1%, because as you say, that's what makes the difference. If you read Jim Collins' book Good to Great, he talks about
Yes.
level 5 leadership is your ability just to tick along, getting 1% better all the time, and actually leave the noise out. In principle, it's one of the basic fundamentals of level 5 leadership, is that it's not about you, it's about them and serving them in the best way, and actually not being so care so much about who gets the credit, but actually we are moving the needle.
Yes. Yes. Moving into new spaces and new industries has been challenging for obvious reasons, right? I am still learning. I am trying to immerse myself in the knowledge, talking to the smartest people, reading all of the books. This is where you and I were talking before. I am a constant student. And the moment that I recognized that was a positive attribute and not one to shy away from, I think that's where my personal paradigm shifted. I now lead with that. I am open to learning. I'm open to changing my mind when the information changes. I am accepting of when I am wrong. I am excited to share what I've learned with people and to learn from them. But when I walk into an industry as sometimes stuck in its ways as the hospitality industry, right? As innovative as we are on the food front, we are um, fairly specific in the ways that we approach how we run a restaurant, how we operate a business, how this industry treats its people. And so changing any of that or being a new voice in the room has been difficult. So I've had to find sponsors. I've got the mentors, the people who are going to guide me and give me that direct feedback, but I needed people who were going to support me in the room when I wasn't there. That is what a sponsor is for me. And finding those people, I had to earn their trust. And it all comes back to, I think, being authentic, being genuine, and admitting what you don't know, and asking, if nothing else, if you can just sit quietly and learn from them, right? And be very clear about where you want to go and what you want to do and get their feedback. But I was very fortunate to find these great people, particularly in Birmingham, Alabama, men and women alike, who were willing to take a chance on me because all I wanted to do was give to this community. And so they were the ones that were in the rooms when I wasn't there, saying, we should give her a shot. She should be included in this meeting. And that takes a really long time. But those are the relationships that were pretty instrumental to me entering, again, a market that I wasn't from. I had no business being in that industry. I was a female coming into a very male dominated space, right? And so it is not impossible, but it is improbable unless you have the tools. And one of the tools for me was really leaning on folks that were entrenched in that industry, in the community, who were trusted and beloved, and going directly to them and asking. And some were very open, and some said, I don't really have time. And that's okay. But I was always going to ask the question. And the worst that was going to happen is that they said no. And so I think that's what allowed me to wedge that door open. And then it was a matter of proving myself, which meant I needed to read the books and talk to all the people and ask the right questions and prove that I was able to stand next to them and offer something. And as much as it might sound silly, I tried to offer as many favors as I could because I knew I was going to come back one day and ask them for something.
Yeah.
And I said that, right? I said, I fear, I know there's going to be a day when I'm going to come to you and ask for your advice or your counsel, or I need something. Is there anything I can do for you today? And that might have meant washing dishes. It might have meant sending a great team member over to help them. It might have meant, being interviewed for an article that was about, something they were doing, whatever it was. But I was really keen to say yes. And I think opening myself to those experiences and earning trust by giving, it was a longer road, but it paid off.
Yeah.
Because it felt genuine.
It's really interesting you mentioned the ability to ask, which I think often is a big challenge. And actually, we had I had Wayne Baker on the show earlier this month, where he talks about, he wrote the book "All You Have to Do Is Ask," and he talks about, if you don't ask, you're not solving the problems you need to get solved, because you can't solve all problems yourself, as you say. And the ability to ask is actually a huge thing that definitely took me some years in entrepreneurship. And actually, I thought almost looked like I didn't know what I was doing. And actually, the humility to say that I don't know is actually where people go, oh, well, I can help you. I would love to help you. I'm an expert in this. I want to show my expertise and help you, if that's for, for a fee, or it's not for a fee. But actually, a lot of people give free help, without asking anything back for it. Let's talk a bit about the problem you're solving in hospitality. You were touching on the staffing issue. Um, tell us a little bit about how that came about. It was in the pandemic. You were hitting the staffing crisis yourself. Talk a bit about how you then come to, there must be a better way. There must be a different way to solve.
There must be a better way.
Yeah.
There must be a better way. I mean, most entrepreneurs out there had this moment of, surely there is a better way to do this, right? And I was so lucky in the dark depths of 2021, when we were watching other businesses close down. We were watching people shutter. We were watching, for me personally, I used to be 50% men and women on my team. And during the pandemic, something awful happened, which was most of the women who worked for me had children to take care of all ages. And so when schools closed, they had to choose between being a parent and putting food on the table. And they're always going to choose being a parent, always. And as a new mother at that moment, I understood for the first time, like, what that must feel like. And so for me, not being able to give, I'm a small business. We are running very lean. And I knew that I couldn't give months and months of pay time off because we were so new. We weren't even eligible for all of the government support. And so we had to figure out a way on our own. But it was watching the exodus of women from our industry. And our little microcosm at Blue Root was watching these women leave and thinking, these are some of my best workers and they're begging to work. They just can't work when I need them to work. Okay, well, I know these businesses down the road that need people at different times. Maybe my people can earn some cash there. Okay, well, now all of a sudden you get a little bit nervous. Am I going to start losing more people? Well, if we take a huge step back and we ask ourselves, is there a community of businesses that need help and talent that's looking for flexible work? Can we just figure out a way to bring these two sides together? And so, like most startups, there was not insane technology to start. It was really just trying to solve a problem. And so, three other industry veterans who are incredible, plus one software engineer, and I teamed up to try to figure out if we could bring these two worlds together in a more seamless way. Because right now it was a text to the bar over there and a stop by the restaurant over here. Do you have 6 hours for me this week? Can I work, the midnight shift? Can you bring me into dishwash on Sunday? There had to be a better way. And so that was really the beginning of Croux. At the very end of 2021, we hatched this plan. We won a little hackathon in a Techstars hackathon. And, there was enough there for us to say, okay, we're not going to quit our day jobs, but we believe that there is momentum because there was enough interest from the people that we were serving. Can you get this right? Can you really give us an opportunity to work flexible hours and to get paid right away and to pick and choose where we work and to earn benefits and things that were just very novel in the industry? And so in 2022, we formalized a plan in the company called Croux, Croux. And that came from this notion of roux, the base of a dish, right? Thinking about the humans in hospitality that are really the base of what this entire industry stands on. If we can't figure out a way to support the people, this industry does not exist. And so we built Croux, joined the Croux as this community of people that was looking for a different way. And what that does for us when we think about the mission of Croux, we think about economically empowering individuals, right? Allowing them to pick where, when, and how they work and how much they earn. And we fundamentally believe that when we empower individuals and allow them to bring their full selves to work because they work around childcare and transportation and get paid quickly on the funds that they've earned and tap into wellness and health benefits, some of which are free, and get tax support and ... When we can arm individuals with all of these things that are otherwise absent in our industry, they can show up with their full selves to work. And when employees show up with their full selves to work, our businesses can run at top speed. And when businesses and local communities run at top speed, those local economies start to thrive. And it all starts with supporting the humans, the people. And that was the beginning.
So the typical, like the I can see, if you typical use of this platform, besides the restaurants and the retail space or whatever it is that has frontline employees and where the skill barrier is not super high, we just need somebody, we can quickly instruct them to do the job. But who would typically use this platform? You were talking about the moms that might find it difficult to have a full-time job, for example. That's definitely a dilemma you heard before. Really good female leaders leaving the industry because they couldn't get part-time or 4-day work week or whatever it is they needed.
That's right. What we've seen, so we've filled over 10,000 shifts really across the Southeast and the Midwest in the US. And the focus is exactly what you described. I would call these lower skilled, lower risk roles. Regardless of your experience, you could step into it and do the job. And the types of roles really range from event staff. So I need to set up tables before a wedding, or I need to pour water, or I need to run from kitchen to table, to bartenders and barbacks, to dishwashers. And we certainly have more skilled positions, whether that's a line cook or some prep. But generally speaking, these restaurants, bars, event venues, and everything in between are looking for extra sets of hands on their most important evenings or days, right? They're hosting a wedding. They've got to staff up. They're hosting a football game in a stadium. Who's going to clean up after that stadium, right? But that stadium, that game is going to yield so much revenue for that business, the people, the town. It's critical that it goes on and it goes off without a hitch. Now, who fills those roles? Yes, I think about working parents. And that's a good example, whether you're caring for children or you have elder care, right? A continued conversation we have. I'm caring for the next generation above me in some way, shape, or form. I've got to work around those responsibilities. And so people who are in caregiving roles who can't sign up for a 30-hour week job because they need to be they're at the behest of whomever they're caring for. That's one great example. Another great example is students who are focused on learning. And this may be a traditional college student. It may be somebody who's gone back for a technical skill. It may be someone who's picking up some classes on the side. But now you can earn while you learn, and you can pick up shifts and help pay your tuition, pay the bills, put gas in your car, do all those fun things. And then the third is hospitality people who are already working multiple shifts and multiple jobs as we speak. You know this. Most of the people that work for me at Blue Root, it's a daytime job, and they're picking up shifts elsewhere in evenings and on weekends. And I fully support that. They've got to earn as much as they can. And we're only open so many hours. So instead of asking these folks to go cobble together 2 or 3 different jobs, perhaps they have a core job, which is what we've seen, a W-2 job, like at Blue Root, but then they go pick up bartending shifts whenever they can. And that may mean that they're going to work an event all weekend and put $500 in their pocket. But those are the 3 types of profiles we see time and time again. But at the end of the day, outside of the demographic or those groupings, the real through line is life is very expensive and people are looking for opportunities to earn more, whether that's to put into savings, to pay off credit card debt, to pay the student loans that are back in the US, whatever it might be. And so people are looking to earn. And so the reason we've made those roles so low risk and so easy to step into is because anybody, you or I who work in the industry, my parents who don't work in the industry, a young college kid, there's a wide gamut of people, whether or not they have experience, that could step into a role today and earn cash today and be helpful to a business today.
So we take it a view from the, because it's great for the worker in a way. It gives you them lots of ability to earn extra money around their own time. But we take it from an operator point of view, because when I was a full-time operator, one of the difficult things I was struggling with was actually taking people in temporary, or they have to be part of the company, all this thing. I need to employ them to give them my culture, all that stuff. And I often said, well, we need to give the culture to the culture carriers. We have this foundation of staff in our business that's really important. That's our leadership team and a core group of where we are following that 1 to 2%, because we just have to accept it's a transient industry and not everybody wants to work in hospitality for the rest of their life. That's just the reality. But how is operators taking this? Have the pandemic helped with being more open-minded to solutions like this?
I think they have. I think because the founders are operators, we wanted to make sure that that perspective and that psychology was represented. So when I talk about our focus on the talent, I do believe that we have to start there and build a culture in the community of people who want to show up to work. These are people that have raised their hand saying, I want to work, I want to show up, I want to earn, I want to do a good job. But we have very high barriers to allow you to get into that community. There's a very rigorous screening process. There's a background check, this, that, and the other. However, if you've made it through all of that, if you don't show up on your first shift with Croux, you just don't show up, a no call, no show, you're not allowed to use the app anymore. And I know there are extenuating circumstances. We'll put that aside for 1 second. But what we've seen is good behavior tends to lead to good behavior. We're here to support the good behavior. And it doesn't matter your skill set. It doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter your race. It doesn't matter your gender. You want to show up and do a good job, I'm going to reward you. Your trust score is going to grow. Your earnings are going to grow. It's all about you being able to show up and do the job. And so there's a sliding scale of suspensions and terminations if people don't abide by the guidelines that are very strict and very clear. And for us, it's quality over quantity. And so when I talk to businesses and I say, look, this is a different approach, I get that. And very, very specifically, the businesses that find Croux to be a lifeline or a true support system for them, they typically tend to be organizations that have a really strong core staff, but they've got a lot of events where they need a pop of people, one day a week or during a season or one night. And what this does, bringing Croux people in that are highly motivated, they're high caliber, and they've hit all these markers, it precludes their core team at that said business from getting burnt out. Because on those high stress nights, The business knows my best bartenders can be up front, and the crew people are going to be doing a lot of the not so fun work behind the scenes. But that's going to allow my bartenders to shine. It's going to allow my servers to run fast. They're going to know that the dishes are going to be done, the floor is going to be mopped, that things are going to be clean. And at Crew, we're here to do the unglamorous work. That's the whole point. Anybody could step in and do it. I want your core staff at the business to be running at top speed, and now they've got help to do that. One extra bar back, right? One more person on the line to just help to alleviate a little bit of the stress. But what that also does for the businesses is instead of carrying a full staff 24/7, 365, when they really only need those extra people during a certain season or a couple of nights during the year, it allows them to really be thoughtful about labor costs. And let's not ignore how important that line item is on the P&L, right? Getting that right. If you can get your labor costs right, it means you can take care of your core people. You can start to perhaps do things that you weren't doing before, benefits, pay time off, all these things. But you can run the team that you need and flex up when you need it, but only when you need it. And our subscription model, you turn us off whenever you don't need us. I don't need you to be holding on to Crew if you don't need us. I'm here to help you when you need me. And if you find someone awesome and you want to bring them on full time, I encourage that because we have a lot of people that want full-time jobs, but not everyone. And so we're here to support you in whatever facet that is. You need somebody one night for a wedding. You need somebody during a football season for several weeks. You need someone to come in full-time. I've got your back. And you use us when you need us because I know businesses' needs ebb and flow constantly.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here for.
And especially in the world we live in now where there's so much, it could be weather. It's a very good one. And now suddenly climate change has been relative of restaurants. Strikes here in the UK, we have train strikes. So if you have definitely if you have a London location, you'll suddenly see that either your demand flux up when they cancel the train strike last minute and then you can't staff properly, or it goes down when they decide to now next week we're going to do a train strike, and that's gone on for 2 years. And I know it's huge amount of money operators are not just wasting in revenue but also in their cost base, and also bad customer reviews when they're not ready. So,
Exactly.
and it's really one of the things I was thinking about if I was an operator is then what you're also solving is that I guess when you get people from the platform working in a place and they know the place, they've been there before, you try to send them again, I guess. And they can say, I would like to go there again, or they can
Yes.
say, I don't want to
Yes.
like to go there. Because I guess also there's an
Exactly.
element of curating the operators, because you want an
Mhm.
operator that treats the people from the platform, for the community in a nice way.
Yes, exactly. And we try to ensure that quality over quantity rings true on both sides of the platform, right? For businesses and for talent. For the businesses, they review the talent, and those reviews, along with all sorts of other components, build a talent's trust score. And that's how a business knows if this person is likely going to be the right candidate for them. Because the things that businesses are looking for today is a little bit, like I said, less the hard skill and much more of the are you going to show up on time with your shirt tucked in, ready to work nicely with other people and just say, yes, sir, I'm here to do the job. That's what people are looking for. They need an extra set of hands that's going to be supportive. That trust score is really based on the ratings from the business and all of the other inputs on the trustworthiness of that candidate. But concurrently, the talent rates the businesses. And it's as simple as would you work here again or not, right? And we want to make sure there's complete confidence on both sides for folks to speak freely. I had a great experience there. That kitchen was a wonderful place to work. Or, you know what? They really were pretty disorganized. And I'm going to take that feedback in a way that's thoughtful and say to the business, we had really good feedback, but here's a couple of things we learned. How can we help you make sure that the experience with Crew folks is great next time? The feedback coming from us to the businesses has been so well received, whether that's industry insights, location insights. Here are what businesses like yours, here's how they're approaching these types of problems. And so the analysis that we're able to provide to these businesses has been pretty instrumental, and they're receptive to it. But the two-way rating really keeps folks true to their commitment, and I think that's really important. It's really important. And should we find talent or businesses that aren't aligned in our values, we're okay to say goodbye, and that's okay because our reputation is staked on the reputation of the businesses and talent we work with, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You're only as good as the people you surround yourself with.
exactly.
What have, you know, being involved in, different kind of business over the last couple of years. We touched on the pandemic. We don't need to dive into much to that. Hopefully, we're on the other side of that. But what has been like, you as a business owner, co-founder, involved in these different businesses, the most significant learning you had? Because we all come out of some like big moments with something.
Yes. As I read more books on the business front or the self improvement front, as I read these things, I'm nodding to myself, thinking, oh, yes, 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 I made all of these mistakes, and I'm still making them. I will admit. I think some that come to mind that I've really tried to be pretty self aware about and pretty conscious on how I'm tackling them. One of which is staying small, meaning keeping the focus narrow in scope, being able to sharpen the spear. And that translates to, with Crew, a very specific segment of the market, right? A very specific profile of a business, very specific markets that hit a rubric that we've developed that is important for us. It's very easy. I get pulled almost daily into conversations around taking Crew into new industries, new markets, new places and spaces. And our focus right now is to prove, iterate, and reprove that we figured it out in this space. So continue to keep that focus narrow. And the same I would say is with my menu at Blue Root. This is so hard. I really struggled as an early restaurateur trying to be all things to all people, right? And so I can't even tell you how many things are on my menu. And now I have salads, I have burgers, and I have bowls. I have three of them each. That's it. We rotate seasonally. People know what they're walking in to get. And I probably lost customers who loved that we used to serve XYZ, and we don't do that anymore. But for simplicity, stability, processes, execution, and also brand, what are we known for? All of those things, it rolls up to a narrow focus and just executing the hell out of that. And so that's been a real learning for me, because I tend to want to say yes. Someone says, can you add that to the menu? That's a great idea. I'd love to do that next season. No, I'm not doing that. Right. Go to this new market for Crew. I'd love to do that. No, I can't do that. Right. And so going back, like I said to my team, what I said about my team, we've got one big goal this year, and so many things roll up to that. But I keep asking myself and them, what has to be true for us to hit that goal? And everything else gets pushed to the side. And that's a constant learning for me to refocus, because I want to say yes to so many things. Right. I think that's probably the biggest one. I think the other is I find this interesting to keep learning, but the constant need to learn and absorb and be ahead of the curve in this industry is part of like our secret sauce. We have to continue to stay relevant. We have to educate ourselves. Complacency has no room in our playbook. And so I love that, it's so fun that we get to pursue that curiosity, but it is really, really, really important. There is, even when times are good, I tell my team, this is not a moment of rest. Like, let us appreciate, let us, note the success and say, well done. But we cannot rest on our laurels, and we can't become complacent, because our world, and this, is constantly changing. So continuing just to stay up to speed.
Yeah, I think very interesting what he's talking about. That it's all when you find something that works, you think, let's just continue doing that. But actually, then when it feels like that, that's when you should ask yourself. It doesn't mean you should stop doing it, but is there actually something we're missing? Should we actually take a different tweak on it to stay relevant? Are we actually doing the right thing now? Because I think like people's, consumers are changing fast, but also I think really interesting, which I think it's the hardest thing in our economy of the smartphone, the economy, you can say almost the economy of where you actually are in the center of everything, every transaction, and you're used to being disrupted so much. It's actually you didn't call it focus, but I call it like the 20% that get 80%. Like, and my really one of my big goals this year is also like, how can I get things off my surface that doesn't really contribute to my big goals, and thereby indirectly the business I'm involved in. And it's really hard, like where especially when you're in a starting position with some from a sales point of view, you talk about, oh, should we roll it out here? Should we, oh, do you want to come and pitch us? And you get flattered and people want to hear about your business. But then actually what happens is that because you're not clear about who we sell to, or what are we trying to prove, first of all, because you've chosen the channel because that's the right channel to serve. It's great, all these opportunity, but it's not now. Stay small, get it right, and then maybe you're going to be there one day. But actually, often
Yeah,
niche is the best place to be. Um,
I would agree. Yeah, I
yeah,
would agree. And I think, one of those advisors I talked about, those sponsors that I mentioned early on, one of the gentlemen had said to me, I know you want to grow. This was with Blue Root years ago. I know you want to grow. I know you want to get to multiple units. I know you want to do XYZ. You cannot do any of that unless you get the first one right. Right? You cannot even continue to take what you've done and scale if that one doesn't work. And so I think about that all the time for the restaurant. I think about that for Croux. And so I know I talk a little bit about out of both sides of my mouth when I say we also have to be, continually relevant and, continue to experiment. It still goes back to the goal we're trying to achieve, the people we're trying to serve, the goal we're trying to achieve. And so it's it's hard to do because you're right, the world in which we live, we're getting pulled. I feel like I'm constantly chasing the latest social media ad algorithm trend, like you haven't figured this out yet, as one silly example. And we've got to stop the madness on that front. So like I said, we keep going back with the team to say what is not required, what is not mission critical for us to hit this big goal this year. Everything else goes to the wayside. So it's hard. It's hard to say no to things,
but also,
particularly when you're a young founder.
I guess you talk about the goal you set for this year, the big goal that you're hunting. I guess also defining that goal makes it easier than to pull people back, because you define it. Everybody has hopefully a shared understanding in that purpose and direction of where you're going, and therefore you say, no, no, that's really great. I had a similar conversation yesterday where I said, yeah, that's an absolutely great opportunity, but it's not what we wanted to do this year. It might lie in the future, but when the opportunity might not be there. But again, then everything else we've done the last 3 months is wasted if we start hunting that, because who's going to hunt it beside us, and then we're lost focus. But again, it was only because it was so clearly defined in the last quarter last year. This is the ultimate goal, and if that doesn't happen, nothing else matters. So that's all the energy has to be behind that critical goal. But many businesses don't do that. It sounds so simple, but actually, my experience, and I've been, the worst myself for getting that, because the shiny next thing and the excitement of a founder. Oh, that's exciting. Let's run after that, and that happens. What would be your, what it would be your top hack you will share with others that you do, because like you feel like you have lots of energy, have a lot on your plate, but how do you show up as the best version of yourself every day and do what you need to do the work, as you said in the beginning?
Yeah, do the work. It is not glamorous, and every day is not a great day. Let's be honest. We're working day to day a lot of the times as a parent and a founder, and anybody who's in the hospitality business knows that it's a family business whether or not your family actually works there, because you bring everything home to them, right? And so it becomes all encompassing. And so I think there's a couple things that I'm working on. I can't say that I figured it out yet, but there's a couple things I'm working on that have proven to be pretty useful. And these are from all the books that like The One Thing, or any sort of focus on minimalism, simplicity. But for me, a lot of it has to do with how I allocate my time, sticking to that, and having personal time in the morning to work out, to meditate, to walk, to play with my 2.5-year-old, whatever it might be. There's things that I find sacred in the morning. And one of those moments of, minutes of sacredness, if you will, is also planning out the next day. And I've got my calendar tagged for it the next day, so that I know there's usually one thing that I've got to tackle to make sure that I continue to push forward toward that big goal. And so on a big level for the company, we sat down in Q4 and did our planning for Q1, and we scoped out the year. We knew what that big goal was. We were able to articulate that from a quarter to quarter perspective, and then a month to month, and then a week to week. And so the team knows exactly from a qualitative and quantitative perspective what needs to happen for us to keep on track. So there's no thinking, right? I don't have to allocate mind share or brain power to figure that out every day. I just know. And so that was some upfront time. That notion of measuring twice, cut once, I just really subscribe to. And it took time. And I think the team was really grateful we did it, because now they know what their direction is. And they're not waking up in the morning thinking, where should I be spending my time? What's right? What's not? I want people to feel empowered. I'm working with other co-founders, right? These are leaders of the business. And so we divided and conquered along our lines of expertise. And so we know what we're doing. And so therefore, when I plan out the day or the week, taking those 15 to 20 minutes to do that has been instrumental and really game changing for me personally, because it allows me to say no to a lot of the things that aren't required, right? And I have to block out time just for the stuff to pop up, because our industry, corporate world, it's like 80% we know it's coming, 20% we don't. And in a restaurant, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
The weather, the call outs, the suppliers, like whatever it is. And so I've just always allocated some extra time for that.
So what you just touched on there, like and I wrote about it the other day. I'm gonna share it on LinkedIn very soon. I wrote a little blurb about, because I was very frustrated by the messiness of life and business, and it came back to somebody I interviewed at some point, and Vicky Barnes. You should go back and listen to that interview if you're listening to this as well. She talk about radical acceptance, and I think in the founder or the restaurant and the food world, there's so many moving parts that you can't control it. And I deeply down have this demon of control. That's why I really tried to McDonald's, because I could control. I could pull in that thing, and then that happened down the line, or this happened. But the reality of entrepreneurship is that you can't. But if you have the baseline, as you say, your fundamental blocks, your morning routine, or whatever you call it, in place, and I feel I have the same, then I had a good start. And then it doesn't matter what happens. If my day start like this and it end like that, that's fine, because a good start and a good ending wraps it in. And yeah, I love that thing. And I struggle with this myself. And even though I'm doing these things, doesn't mean I'm totally in control, but I actually feel a bit more control. I think before we started recording, I just said I had this one of these week on the entrepreneur's journey where it just keeps on coming. Obstacle is the way. You just have to look in that book by Ryan Holiday every day, just to keep saying, yeah, it's okay. It has to be hard. You need to get a stone to bleed, before you get there, and all that. Um, what is um, what is the one question you wished I've asked you, and what would it be, and what would you answer, Jennifer?
So I think we had a lot of great topics today. I think I get asked a lot by folks who are excited to start a business, but they don't know where to start. And I don't know if you get that same question.
Mhm.
How did you pick up and do this twice? What made it? What made you feel like you could do that? I don't have the XYZ, the funds, the time, the support, whatever it might be. And I'm not sure I've got the perfect answer to this one, but I will say, and a lot of people that come to me, they happen to be women that have a great idea or an ability to maybe spin out and do something on their own, but they're really worried about the risk associated. And what I typically tell them, because it's the advice that I got, was if people are looking to make a shift, whether that's building a business, changing an industry, trying something new, I'm a huge believer in putting yourself into uncomfortable positions, clearly, because I keep doing it for better or for worse. But a great mentor of mine had told me to put perfect on paper, right? So if you're in a place where you're looking to make a left turn or to take a leap, put perfect on paper of what that experience is, what that business looks like, what that new employment looks like, what your comp is, what the flexibility, whatever is important to you. I think it's really important that we each do this, because no one is going to put this perfect picture together but us. And so if you're in that moment where you're looking for something new or different, or just a deviation from where you are today, articulate perfect for yourself
Mm.
and tell yourself you deserve it. And then give yourself a period of time. For me, when I was launching, Blue Root, was a period of time and a dollar amount that I wasn't going to exceed and some markers I had to hit. And I put it together and I said, if I can do this within this period of time, I'm going to keep going. And if not, I'm going to say I tried and I'm going to revert. But for all of those of you out there who are looking to just maybe make a leap or try something new, give yourself a chance and put it on paper, because that's the first step of making it real. And then give yourself a time frame to go start executing. And I think you'll surprise yourself. So
Yeah, I was very into what you said there. It was actually my mentor that said at some point to me as well. Also, as you do that, and it's not to stop your progress. And you think you mentioned as well there. You said, when are you leaving it? Like, when is enough enough? I think lots of people think they start something and then they're not successful with it, and then they have to leave it. I had to leave some things in the pandemic, and I felt very. Now I've learned how to leave things. It's easier now. It'll be easier. Well, it's not doesn't work. It doesn't give any sense. We tried everything, but of course you have to try everything you can in your power. But what is the point of leaving? And that's actually harder than defining than starting. It doesn't mean you're pessimistic. actually means that actually you know when it starts not being good for yourself and your family and so on. And you need to know where that line is, I think, as well. I think that's what people are scared of, because they haven't defined what that line look as. And actually, we suffer more in imagination and reality often.
Yes, yes, we do. I would also, I would also say that this notion of failure. I don't know if you feel it in the UK as much as you do in the US. It's getting better, but it's really frowned upon, or at least there's a feeling that it's frowned upon, right? And the more you spend time with entrepreneurs, real entrepreneurs who have tested and tried, you recognize that there's not a stigma. It almost is a badge of honor. Like, I tried, I went for it, I put together a business plan, it didn't work. And here's what I took from that for the next business.
Yeah.
And so, just as much as it's easy for me to say, if that's what's precluding you from trying something new is falling on your face, um, what's the worst that can happen? You
Yeah.
fall on your face.
And also, as
You
long
got
as
to
you
let go.
know when that moment is coming,
What
it's
those
like,
guardrails are.
yeah,
Mhm.
and you
Yep. Put those
described it.
guardrails up for yourself.
At that point it's not going to work anymore. Then what you when you're heading it, and then it's not going to be a surprise in a way. And then of course, it's not going to be easy, but you can definitely better manage that if you are not manifested how the worst situation could look.
Yeah,
Um,
that was great.
where could people find out more about Cruise, what you do, seek more information, maybe connect with you? What are the best places to go?
Sure. Croux is Croux. That's Croux.co. That's the website. You can contact us through that. I'm also Jennifer at crew.co. We're on social media, join Croux, Croux. You can also stop by Blue Root if you're in Birmingham, Alabama. Find us on Instagram, BLUEROOT. I'm on LinkedIn as well. Say hello, give us some feedback. I also would just love to hear about other entrepreneurs' journeys. It feels so lonely doing this sometimes, but knowing other people that are out there trudging along just like we are, it's really refreshing to hear those stories. So here, if you guys need anything, just grateful for the time today.
Great. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for coming to the show. Power to you and the teams, and the year ahead. And I'm hoping you're going to smash that one big thing.
Thank you. Appreciate that.